Oh, no, you didn't start it up that way, so.
Yes. Okay, I'll do that again. This is the first meeting of 2025 of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
And I will call the meeting to order by calling the roll. Reg Foster is here.
Jim Flanagan's here.
Ed Scheidler is here.
Penny Kirk here.
Janice Bennett is here.
We have everybody here and we have a quorum, of course, and I just wanted to note for the record that the Secretary of the Needham Housing Authority provided adequate notice of this meeting by preparing a public notice on January 10th, 2025, setting forth the date, time, and place, and filed it with the clerk of the town of Needham. And also this meeting is taking place as a hybrid meeting as allowed for the next 3 months by Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 that was extended by Governor Healy on March 29th, 2023. So we will jump into the agenda. Announcements from the chair. We obviously have had some momentous events happen this week in that the no vote prevailed on the MBTA Communities Act referendum on the 14th. But we did put it on the agenda, so we won't talk about it at this point in time. We'll get there when we get there. I also was looking at the town clerk's results that was posted yesterday, Wednesday, on that no vote, because I was very curious to see how much the no vote had prevailed, and it was about 60-40. And I also noticed that there was a new page on the town clerk's website page that you can go to, where she's also announced all the open boards, commissioners, committees, seats open for election at the town election. I think it's April 8th, 2025. And one of those seats is a commissioner of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners up for re-election. It's hard to believe, but 5 years has gone by since Ed Scheidler was last elected. And so that seat, as we normally do, the first meeting in January, we acknowledge that that is up for re-election. Okay, so we get to resident community input. Shall we start in the room here? And go ahead, Ed, Jim, I mean.
I have a question about the 3 fire hydrants that are on the Linden Chambers property. The fire hydrant that's on Chambers Street, right near 40, is, to me, appears to be rusted out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, when was the last time they were tested after the tragedy in California? There weren't working fire hydrants, and I just want to know.
I don't know if our executive director knows the answer to that question.
I do not know. And you can always ask me those questions before a board meeting, but I can check with Greg and find out.
Okay, second question.
May I say, I think I know an answer, and I'm just actually going to pass it over, which is I know those hydrants or the water flow was tested at some point in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
For the Linden, Chambers redevelopment, effort that's been undergone, but I don't think that's what you mean by your question. But I just want to say that, one of the things that was assessed is whether there's adequate water pressure in the area.
Who tested?
Yeah, when we had BH&A, as you know, have been creating a whole redevelopment plan. One of the things you have to do is to test the adequacy of the infrastructure, the electric utilities, the water utilities, the gas utilities, and I vaguely recollect it was tested, but certainly is something that can be followed up on. Anyway, you were at a second point there.
Is it the responsibility of Needham Housing Authority or the fire department? I know that Chambers is a private way, and that's what puzzled me.
It would be the fire department.
Okay,
Yeah, but then the fire department says because it's a private way, they've stated that they don't have any jurisdiction over it.
I don't know that they did say that. They might have said the road surface, like repaving it and stuff or something like that, but the actual hydrant and the water system all belongs to the town of Needham. It's the town of Needham's water system.
okay.
Is NHA, is that the group of architects or is that a different company?
It's the same people that have been working for the last couple of years on, it's the name of the firm. But, you know, do we have, I see we have Ross Donald here. Ross, if you, as president of the tennis association, want to please put your hand up. There you go. Because that's the agenda. So Ross, you should be unmuted.
All
And
right.
now we can hear you.
Yeah, this reminds me, I've got to get a new picture there. So, all right, well, thank you very much. It's Ross Donald. We have a Zoom meeting, our satellite extension here. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So we're at 5 Chambers Street, and I'd like to be there in person, but this is nice too. I don't really have any list of things. I'm going to start, you know, the things that are worth saying and worth repeating and keeping track of. I'm going to start putting in writing. We want to get our residents advisory board up and running, so that we can develop some participation. We anticipate regular meetings. We've suggested to everybody that would come to a staff meeting, like coffee for the workers or something like that. So just that so they can be reminded of things that we've gone through before, such as when the workmen are around, they tend to clean things up. So we have a shelf of interesting information, like a catalog of courses that are available. You know, they think it's just trash, so they clean it up. Am I coming through okay?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So we're very interested, now that we're an LTO, to get the office space that we're allowed. So I spoke with Greg about that, and he thought that maybe 180D would be a good space. It's in the process of being worked on. We can move in right away if there's no new floor in the kitchen, then we can live with that, and we can work around them too. I know they're working on a couple of other units, the one right next door to me. You know, there's also 164 Linden. I'd like to keep that alive. I was looking at the record, and the last time it was under discussion was, 2019, and it was under consideration for a variety of multi-use kinds of things. Anyway, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Do we have any report from the Seabeds and Cooksbridge Tennis Association?
Yeah, I've got a couple things to say. And first of all, I wanted to let you know, and I think Cheryl got her notice that, and a lot of these folks don't know, but Seabeds Wave residents wrote a note to Cheryl expressing our appreciation for Lori Blake and Liz Fay in their efforts, to help everybody out. So they each got a note, and so they said it was very nice to be appreciated. So anyway, my question is, and I'm doing this as a public resident. I've got two questions. At the special budget meeting on December 12th,
Mhm.
Staff salaries were made public due to raises or percentages or something. Was this was a public meeting from what I understand. It was posted, I guess,
Yes.
downtown. Should the names and the numbers have been kept private?
So in this world that we live in, of the open meeting law,
Mm-hmm.
that information is not private the way you would expect it to be in the private sector. It is public information, how much our executive director gets and how much we pay people. So,
Yeah.
it does, there's, the requirement is that
Yeah.
to be open about that information.
Yeah.
Okay, it just struck me as being a little bit intrusive.
Yeah,
Can I-
and
You know, when I've talked to other people who worked in different companies with budgeting meetings and everything, and
you don't do it that way.
no, you don't do it that way.
Exactly.
And I agree with that. I think something like that
You,
should be private.
you know what Governor Healy's salary is and you know.
I know, that's the Boston Herald for
All,
you,
the-
you know.
all the way down to, Marie's salary is all
But
public
the other
information.
thing was that, apparently two people, from what I could read on Rickshaw's list,
Mhm,
two other people were removed, and that would be kind of embarrassing for me,
yeah,
if it were me.
Can I say
So,
something?
go ahead.
anyway.
But we do, on that note, we do protect our residents' privacy. That is paramount. We do
Mhm.
not put out any intrusive information about our residents. So we
No,
do
no, I'm not
protect our
talking
residents. But
residents.
in terms of staff, state and federal employees, that information is open to the public.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I just want to state for the record that the commissioners do not get any salary.
Yeah, we know. The other question,
Used to, years ago. when-
But we don't make any money anyway, so.
like,
stipend.
But
You gotta
that was deleted, yeah.
My last question is, and this has to do with, the meetings.
Yeah,
Why there have not been any minutes uploaded since last July? I know the meetings are up there, but not the minutes. And in those minutes, or in any minutes, is there a reason why, resident comments like myself and, commissioner responses don't seem to be included in the minutes?
well, you have two questions here. I don't know the answer to the first question here.
It's not necessary to comment. I'm sorry, to write up comment. The minutes, you typically write the action that was taken.
Okay,
And so it's really my choice in terms of time to not go into the back and forth.
But also, uploading, back minutes onto the website.
Right, so we've been doing them, the August minutes, July minutes are up there. The August minutes need a little more work. And so what I need to do is just to make sure that the edits are completed. So those minutes were submitted as amended. And I need to make sure that those amendments are included in the minutes. And we just recently uploaded the November meeting minutes. Because it was submitted as, it was voted on as submitted, so there were no changes to those minutes. But the minutes that do have suggested changes from the board, I do need to make those amendments and then we'll upload them.
will that also include minutes for the special board meetings?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
All minutes, yeah.
All minutes.
okay. Well, that's it
Anything
for
else?
me.
Okay, yes,
Thank you.
Marlene, you had a,
Okay, I
Comment?
did have two pertinent questions, but I just wanted to respond to the issue about office space since it was raised, and we had the last meeting with Cheryl concerning this, the executive director. And she had offered a possibility to have space at Highland Circle at their offices, because not only is it, large enough, private enough, and also it has internet connection, which we definitely need, and room for telephone and computers. The structure is there.
photocopy.
Well, anything that we need is
Yeah.
there. As far as using these other apartments that have been mentioned, the conditions, the conditions are the heating systems don't work properly, air conditioning doesn't work properly. There's no internet connections there, nothing for phone, everything would have to be, spent money to upgrade it. For internet access, telephone service, and any of the copying, scanning, everything that you really need to do to be professional.
Yeah.
So, to have space in Highland Circle.
Yeah.
for this is the appropriate thing to do.
I think so.
Not to have, and there's also issues with asbestos in these apartments, that's been a fact. I don't wanna sit, hours where there's asbestos, heating problems, air conditioning problems, window problems. So I think that, I just wanna make it clear that we feel that Highland Circle
Okay,
would be, a very good, solution
Option,
to that,
okay.
option,
great.
a solution to that.
I would like to address you, Marlene, on that issue. Over the 25 years I've been here and been involved in tenant associations, we've never had our own office space. We've always used the community rooms for anything that we needed. So, I
But
don't
it's-
think you deserve any special, amenities other than what's ever been provided in the past.
Well, let me
Well,
suggest,
there's been nothing provided in the past. The
Let-
community room is impossible because it's other people
let
use
me
the community.
suggest
room.
that,
And no one ever requested.
let
it.
me suggest that we're not gonna solve it tonight, but we asked the executive director to work with the new tenants association and figure out what the answer
So thank you
is.
for that, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Because
and,
It's requested it and we're stepping up. because
no, we got it.
Do
We
it. We're
got
gonna
it.
be very
we,
professional.
we got it, so it needs. No, I don't want the dialogue back and forth anymore because I want to move on to the other things. We have yeah. It's a-
Question is, I noticed that there are, many fees for auditing and auditors. For Needham Housing Authority. So my first question is, are audits required by law? They are. So the audits that you are conducting, they're all required.
That's
Correct.
All right. Okay, so I just want to bring up an issue. I know that I brought up before about projects and the extra money from the governor's $2 billion plan. And I know you had said they have the annual plan and the 5-year plan, and that will be addressed within that, or the
Mhm.
monies are going to
Mhm.
automatically go into this.
Yeah.
And of course, perhaps a different meeting, we could get into the particulars, but I just want to have one example. There was a project to replace all of the windows in Chambers and Linden, which were very badly needed. And this was part of a 5-year plan, I think 3 years ago. In any event, the previous, whatever it is, the previous individual who was president of the union, everything had been, the information I was given is that everything was finalized for new windows. The money was allocated and it was going to be, accomplished. The windows were going to be replaced and all the money was allocated. They were taking bids, there was nothing to prevent it. And then apparently the money disappeared. I don't know how else to describe it, but that the project was off. And we're not gonna get any windows. And no one mentioned where the money went that had been allocated, or even why the window project didn't go forward. And if it didn't go forward, where did the money go? I mean, I'm sure the auditors know, but I mean, that's just an example because no one understands.
Well, let me ask Cheryl to respond to what
Yeah.
you're saying here.
So, I've been here for 3 years.
Hmm.
So, and money does not get deposited into the Housing Authority's state program or capital projects. We have to requisition that money, so that's a fact. And then secondly, I'd like you to bring that up with me at a meeting so that I can go over again the capital projects with you. And we're starting to start the project for the next annual state plan. So we can, the last time you spoke, you had some concerns about electrical panels and other upgrades inside the building. So it's really gonna be helpful to me to get that information from you as we start that process. But also to give you a clear answer about the window project at Chambers Street. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but I will look into it. And when we meet again, we can talk about the capital program.
Can I ask, when is your next meeting scheduled?
We don't have a meeting scheduled from your president, but, I'm available. Just, reach out to me. And if you just want to talk via email. We had a nice conversation. the
Ross
other day
is
over the
asked to
phone.
jump in on this conversation, and so he may have an answer as, Ross, you should be able to speak. We can see you. We can see your picture here.
Um, yeah, we'll be getting together as a residents group. Just to comment in passing, because it's come up before, to I mean, it's wonderful to be invited to have a tenant's office at across 95 there, but that's 3 miles away. I don't have transportation. That office is not going to be open on the weekends and in the evening. Just not viable.
Ross, we already discussed this, and you're gonna meet Carl to figure out what the answer is here. We're not gonna take any time at this meeting on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thank you. I think the rules allow us to be heard on the agenda items. So I don't know how that's going to be worked out, but thank you for the opportunity.
Association made the point here, so, we don't have to do it twice, is all I'm trying to say. So it would be great if we could get this at, by our next meeting, we have
Yeah.
everybody in agreement on what we're gonna do about office space. Yes, over.
I don't know. I don't know whether it's coming through at all or not, but
You-
hope for the best.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, I'm a resident of Seabed's Way, and I see you have a lengthy agenda, so I won't go through my usual song and dance, but I do have some feelings and thoughts. Residents up here, and I do keep an open door policy in my apartment, whether I want to or not. Anyway, I think we have a nascent beginning feelings of getting our resident group together,
Great.
which leads me. People razz me about the dishwasher and the dishes and stuff, but we have nada. And I don't understand the funding for miscellaneous things in this room. Because to welcome them, we've had dinners, and again, referring back to the girls or the young ladies from the health department,
Lori and Liz.
well, Laurie and so forth, but there's other members of Needham. I guess the effort is to make the residents here feel part of the town. And it's been absolutely wonderful. It just fills in so many needed personal and connections to office, governmental offices and so forth. But if I don't understand where money would come from for concrete things like a coffee maker and so forth, and people have said go down to the center, but I don't think that's a healthy thing to do if we're trying to, get people motivated in the entire town. And I think you hit everything, but can I just look down here for a minute?
Sure.
There is, and it's a little uncomfortable to bring up, but I'm gonna do it because several people have approached me as a RAD board member. They're concerned about the civility in the office. I'll leave it at that. It isn't what you would.
I didn't hear that.
I'm having trouble hearing also.
I'm sorry, Ed, she's a little further away from the speakerphone device here. She was, her second comment was, she's heard some feedback, concerns about the civility in the office. And I was gonna ask Cheryl, maybe if you could address what the 2 points that Carol.
That's kind of broad. I mean, are
Yeah.
you
I
getting,
can't hear you, I'm sorry.
that's kind of broad. Are you getting, not good feedback when you call the office? I mean, I haven't seen you in the office, but.
No, I'm just repeating what's been said and rather.
So it's
having
kind
a
of broad.
No, go around.
Yeah, well, we probably have to bring it forward.
So yes, you
maybe.
should bring it forward with me and we should discuss it
Yeah,
and figure out a solution.
I didn't get home till late. I mean,
Okay.
there's just real life
Yeah.
reasons that this is
I
happening.
would love that.
there are questions, and it probably is for the executive director first, but I'll say it for hopefully people watching on Zoom. And there's changes in the policy, and I wouldn't be in place in my right position to bring it up during your meeting on policy issues, but on when the policy, when someone passes away and the apartment is closed, and then the people go to, I guess, probate court or whatever, it's not over my head, but I don't want to go into the whole thing. So I guess we need to discuss that for the majority of people, and we'll keep working on getting the residents here.
Great.
And a personal thing is, a question I have is, are we still on the search for an executive secretary? Or
An
will-
assistant
I could
executive
be in outer
director.
space, and that's a question
yeah.
from nowhere, but
An assistant executive director, that position is still open.
okay. And, your agenda looks good, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks so much.
I like the haircut, by the
I
way.
just
Yeah.
want to give an FYI to everybody.
Go ahead.
Okay, I told Ross today, I called about it. The washers and dryers. No. This is a good thing.
I didn't say anything.
This is a good thing. I did make the mistake of calling down and talking to Marie, and she said, oh, you gotta call them. I said, okay. So I did call, got the number off the card, talked to a very nice young woman named April. Told her what was going on with our dryer in my building, had to have, just the numbers of the machines. And 4 years ago, when we first had that slick salesman for a meeting with us, he said they would be automatically checked every 3 months. Well, that's not the case. But anyway, they did send out a technician yesterday, because I called today to double check, and so they, she was very nice about it. I just wanted to make sure that they actually did come. And we shall see. But the other thing is, and maybe Cheryl, you may not even know that the cost of the dryers in the machine and the washing machines went up. We did not know this until we put our laundry in, and 10 cents is 10 cents, but still it does add up. But anyway, just wanted to let you know. And also, one last question, I promise. I kept hearing about the general fund. I think that's what it is. And I'm wondering what money is used for, like, the social service people, like Liz and Laurie. Are they allowed to get money out of there, or for our events?
All of these comments are great, and I really appreciate Reg being so patient and kind and listening to your comments.
Okay,
And we really should get together as a board.
Okay.
Citizen Association or
let's
residents
do that.
to talk about these kinds of things.
Okay.
The Ross Service Coordinator grant is it has a budget that includes salary, administrative, and certain things. FSS, that's a salary budget. So I hope that answers your question.
There's different answers depending on what's
Yeah.
being done, and
Right.
it's probably more than we can have time
Time
for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's take this and.
I would love
Yeah.
to give you
Jessica.
all the information you need about that and how
Yeah.
it works.
Ross, I see you put your hand up. I want to try to move on to the next part of the meeting, but do you have something to add?
I just feel two things.
You're on mute, Ross.
I'll get a hold of Jessica.
Yeah.
All right, Ross, we're gonna move on at this point, okay? And we will go to the next agenda item. And that is the review and approve the NHA bill schedule and check warrant of amazingly $803,519.88 since last month. That's a lot of money there. So I will make a motion to approve that.
Second.
And we'll have discussion from the commissioners. Any questions
No
from
comment.
any of the commissioners? Go ahead, Ed. Penny, go
comment.
ahead.
On page 17, I'm just wondering, who is Samantha Haggerty? Is she a consultant?
Yes, he is our section 8 consultant.
Okay. And
All right.
on page, I'm not sure this applies, page 61, there's a $19,000 expense. And I'm just asking, is that one for, or it might have been an eviction thing. Yeah, eviction moving, $1,950. Was that one person?
Are you talking about page 61? It doesn't sound like.
Page 36, I'm sorry. Is an eviction moving for $1,950? I don't know what that means. Does that mean we paid to have this person leave?
Oh, that's in the financial. It's just a budget line item for those expenses.
It's a budget line item for those expenses when we need it. And anything else?
Yeah, on page 61, there's a $19,000 statement of balance. I don't know, does that mean the person owes that money?
61, we're not on that part of the agenda, but
Okay.
you know, that is, yeah. The balances there are unpaid rent.
Okay,
So that balance there is a particular issue that Cheryl has been struggling with. And I think people before Cheryl have been struggling with in
Yeah.
terms of the overdue
Some of
rent
those
there.
balances represent residents who are no longer here.
Yes.
And then we need to develop a policy on how to.
Write them off.
That's
Okay.
correct. We don't have them yet, so that's why they continue to show up on the agent report.
Well, coming back to this particular, this bill schedule check warrant, any other questions from any commissioners? We're a virtual meeting with, so we have to take a roll call vote every time we decide something, so I will call roll to approve this bill schedule check warrant. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed, vote aye.
Oh, Ed Scheidler votes aye. Sorry.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And then we have A2 High Rock Homes LLC bills schedule and check warrant of $28,113.12, which I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second,
Yeah.
Is on those expenditures from the commissioners. Hearing none, I will call the roll for approval. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And that passes unanimously. Now we're on our new consent agenda for real, having practiced it last month. Cheryl has proposed 7 items on the consent agenda. And just to remind everybody what we're doing here, we're trying to shorten the meeting on things that are just routine and don't need us to go through one at a time. So the chair will identify what's on that consent agenda, and we will ask if any commissioners have any exceptions or anything they want to hold out of that for more specific discussion. And for those items that do not have anything that was asked to be held out and discussed separately, we will take one vote instead of 7 votes to invite everything here. So what's on the consent agenda are minutes. Firstly, the special board meeting of 12/2/24. Secondly, the special board meeting of 12/12/24. And thirdly, the regular board meeting of 12/19/24. We have then the regular monthly reports, number 4, from our fee accountant, the monthly accountant's report, number 5, from Cheryl, 6 and 7 from Cheryl, the vacancy and work order report, the tenant's account receivable report, which we just took a question on, by the way, so maybe we won't have any more questions. And Number 7 is the same one. Number 6 is I think the Council Receivable Report for Linden Chambers, and 7 is for Seabeds in Cook and High Rock. So, any of those items, do commissioners want to hold it out from the consent agenda for discussion?
I'd like to discuss. Some of these things have just come into play, over the past year or so, and now we want to get rid of them. I mean, I didn't appreciate seeing all the aging reports. There's a lot of redundant stuff in there regardless, with regard to a lot of these things. I certainly think we can dumb it down, but I don't know about getting rid of all of
No,
it.
we're not. But if you have questions on 6 and 7, then we won't vote on that, and you can, if there's more questions. Any other items we should hold out?
Well, we definitely can't hold out the minutes. I mean, because
Okay.
even the
Okay.
residents, are interested in those, but
We're not, it doesn't mean we're not doing them every month. It just means that we're voting on everything once instead of 6 or 7 times.
oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. I'm sorry, Reg. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm definitely on board with, we'll vote them all at once.
Good, all right. Well, we're doing it the first time, so instead of having, I declare as the chair that I've not heard any items being held out for the 3 sets of minutes, the monthly financial reports, number 4, the vacancy and recorder report 5, and then 6 and 7, the 2 accounts tenants accounts receivable reports. So I make a motion that we approve all those reports and minutes and items on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Candace Bennett votes aye.
And that is approved. All 7 of those items are approved unanimously, and we saved ourselves 10 or 15 minutes, maybe. Next, we're going to open a public hearing that we do every year for the federal side. PHA stands for Public Housing Authority, and state side, they call it Local Housing Authority. Federal side, it's a Public Housing Authority. Either way, it's us, the Needham Housing Authority. The PHA 5-year and annual plan. So I open that at what time do we have? We have 5:40, call it. And let me turn the floor over to you, Cheryl, to present what we have in our packet, and then we will invite public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, make the super.
And just while you're getting your notes, I just want, for the commissioners, it all starts on page 63 of your packet. Yeah.
So, good evening, everyone. As Mr. Chair said, this is our public hearing for our annual and our 5-year plan.
And what 5 years is that, by the way?
It's the 5th year. The 5-year plan is due every 5th year. And so
what time period are we covering? It what, 25 to 29?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right, yeah.
It's on the circuit.
Yeah.
So this is a required event for public housing agencies to discuss their annual plan and their 5-year plan, and to solicit comments from the public regarding the proposed activities. Public housing agencies must consider all comments received at the public hearing in consultation with the Resident Advisory Board. We call it RAB for short. The Resident Advisory Board are members of residents of Needham Housing Authority. They include Janice Bennett, Sue Biazizo, Carol Briggs, and Jessica Reese. Jessica Reese is the president of the CPTA. So why is the public hearing important? The public hearing helps us, the agency, to determine if changes to the plans are needed. The public hearing helps us to ensure that the plan meets the needs of the residents. Anyone can attend the public hearing, and feedback is strongly encouraged. This is our second scheduled public hearing. The RAB board was convened in May of 2024 to consider amendments to the approved 5-year plan. The amendments were needed because the board considered pivoting from the RAD Section 18 construction blend to a Section 22 streamlined conversion application, and subsequently the board returned to the RAD Section 18 construction blend application for which the Housing Authority was approved. So we have been approved for that process, which is very good news. The plans are a comprehensive guide to public housing agencies' policies, programs, operations, strategies for meeting local housing needs and goals. They have 2 parts: the 5-year plan, which PHA submits to HUD once every 5th year, every 5th fiscal year, and the annual plan, which is submitted to HUD every year by non-qualified agencies. Needham, however, is a qualified agency, but because there are policies in the plan that needed, in my opinion, to be updated, I took on the task of submitting an annual plan to HUD, although we weren't required to do that because we are a qualified agency. So the plan itself, and I have copies for everybody, of the annual plan. So if you wouldn't mind passing these around, folks that might need it. Yep. Great, thank you. The plan itself consists of, or the elements of the plan, if you will. Consists of policies that we've updated in partnership with the RAB board. So our RAB board, as I mentioned, was convened in May, and we've been meeting every Monday since November, I think it is. But it contains the annual plan will contain a deconcentration and policy, grievance policy, and pet policy. Our work with the RAB also included an amendment to our rent collection policy and a recreational equipment policy. In addition to that, the annual plan includes activities that the Housing Authority is working on. We're working on mixed finance modernization and development. We're working on conversion of public housing to project-based rental assistance units. We're working on non-smoking or smoke-free building policy. And we're working on units approved for vacancies for modernization. We continue to do work on our capital fund program. An emergency grant was just announced. So we will be applying for that emergency grant, which will help us with a lot of security issues that we have here. The plan also includes a progress report on how the Housing Authority is meeting its goals and objectives. And it also includes a statement about capital improvements. But the biggest work of this plan was really the development of policies, which, as I mentioned, included our deconcentration policy. It deconcentrates income mixing and public housing, so we're not, we're not singling out people and what they earn for certain developments. So, Sue, I'm sorry, if you wouldn't mind. I can give you this over there. And then we also have, a prohibited recreational equipment policy. We have a rent collection policy. And we have the pet policy.
You know, the grievance one?
We didn't include the grievance
Okay.
policy in this part because the grievance policy still requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of, and I'm gonna give that if you wouldn't mind, so
Yeah.
that's pet policy.
Okay.
So it does not include the grievance policy, which it should be included in the annual plan, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the grievance policy. There were a lot of comments from residents. It's gonna take me quite some time to write up those comments and present an analysis of how we address the concerns of residents. So I'm gonna pause here and ask, as I said earlier, there's been 2 public hearings. Our commissioners have weighed in on the policies. Mr. Chair has made suggestion to the pet policy, of which, and the deconcentration policy, of which those comments are included in the policies that you have in front of you. And tonight is an opportunity to have any questions about the policies, if you want to bring those up.
So what I think we should want to do tonight is to see if anybody has any comments to add to the overall 5-year plan, although it sounds like it's been very thoroughly reviewed
Yeah.
by the RAD, so that, you know, if there isn't anything new to bring up, you don't have to repeat something before. And then we'll go through each one of the policies, individual policies that need to be reviewed and approved, and ask for comments on those. And then if the board is satisfied with them, we'll take a vote on those policies. And then we'll come back and see if there are any last comments on the overall 5-year plan. And then we will take a vote to approve that, so Cheryl can get it in to HUD. So we'll start off now with the annual plan and the 5-year plan. I want to say just overall, in this next 5 years, and we've already just started doing it with our beautiful paving project that we just finished. Thank you very much, Madam Executive Director. Long overdue. Definitely needed in other parts, our state facilities and over at High Rock Estates, but we haven't gotten there yet. But I would hope that over this 5-year period, we will see the modernization of Seabed's Way. We will see the modernization of Captain Robert Cook. And that means bringing everything up to, you know, current standards, current zoning, current building codes. You know, so the buildings are, you know, we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but have all their capital needs addressed through what we're trying to do with repositioning. And then with High Rock Estates, which is our oldest property, it's built just in 1950, so that's older. Most of us were, young things, but way back then, and or not even existing. But those will have a start on doing maybe High Rock Homes 2 and High Rock Homes 3. So that's a pretty ambitious 5-year plan. Does anybody have any comments on that or any questions or the
What about
commissioners?
Linden Chambers? You didn't
We're
mention-
just talking about the federal program
Oh,
today.
Sorry, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Jim, let me see if you have anything, comments on the plan.
Yeah, it's exciting. At the same time, we appreciate the residents working with us through what, the short term is change and it's hard. But for the benefit of them in the not so short term, but for years to come.
Yeah.
Great.
Can I just point something out, Reg?
Yes, go ahead, Janice, please.
Yeah, we're talking about the High Rock Estates now, not the homes.
We are talking about during this 5-year plan, we hope for High Rock Estates to start redeveloping that into whatever it's going to become. Maybe it's just more duplexes like High Rock Homes. That's what I was trying to say.
I know, but you adjusted as the High Rock Homes. I'm sorry to just want to get the minutes straight.
Do you have any comments though, Janice?
The only comment I have is, it's been a lot of work in the process, and I'm hopeful we can continue and get all of this done. We need it.
Very ambitious, definitely, but definitely very badly needed.
Yeah.
Ed, do you have any comments? Yes, Ed and Penny, do you have any comments?
No,
No.
Great. From the audience
Mhm.
or online, go ahead.
When are we gonna get started officially?
So, actually, that's on the agenda and a little bit down the road, but the answer is that we're hopefully gonna get started by the end of this year. But there are big challenges that we'll be reporting on when we get to that part of the agenda, where we're falling short of money, and so we're trying to figure out how to get around that, but we'll, you know, what else is new in this business, right? So, but we have, I will go in more detail at that point, but on this 5-year plan, I don't hear any further public comment or commissioner comment. Let's go to the first of the, I guess, 3 policies that we're going to be approving tonight, if they're satisfactory. So number C3 is the draft deconcentration policy. As I understand it, Cheryl, tell me if I have it wrong. This is a policy to make sure that everybody's sort of spread out and we serve income, their various different income levels as invisibly as we can. Is that
Absolutely correct.
in one
In
sentence?
a
Yeah.
nutshell.
Do you want to add anything about this policy?
HUD is requiring this policy, in past, housing agencies were able to forego developing the policy. And we all were calling each other, do you have a policy? Do you have a policy?
Mm.
So it's just something that they hadn't had, but HUD is now requiring it.
Okay.
So I'm glad, it's good.
Okay.
We don't have that issue here, however, at Needham Housing Authority. We mix up our residents.
Yeah.
Nobody knows if they're living next door to a high income earner or a low income earner. Nobody knows.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jim, do you have any comments on the draft or thoughts? They look good to you?
Yep.
I'm just gonna keep going down the roll here. Ed, do you have any comments? Or Penny, do you have any comments on the draft?
No, I
yet?
approve of it.
No. Okay, we're good there. Janice, how about yourself?
No, I'm good.
Okay, then I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the draft deconcentration policy as it exists in our board packet. And do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Hearing no further comments, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Penny votes aye.
That passes unanimously. We're now on our draft pet policy, which we have seen a few iterations at this point. And I'll just turn to Jim and see if you have any comments on draft pet policy.
I do not, nope.
I think we all know.
I
what that-
do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question. There was no, excuse me, historically, I was under the impression that we had a weight limit to the size of dogs. And as I read this policy, there was no reference to the size of the dog or the weight. Is that an omission or a deliberate?
It was discussed at the previous meeting that it should be in there, and it was agreed that it would be.
Yes, I agree with you. I think we should put a weight limit. And what was the other piece?
Just to double,
Size.
Type of dog, breed?
yeah, weight and breed, I
Weight and
think.
breed.
That's
So-
where you gotta,
Yeah.
Massachusetts might have changed the policies on that
How so?
for, non-discrimination against a dog breed. I know, it sounds crazy, but that's something you probably should look
Well, there
into.
was, just another person that was.
Excuse me, I'm not inviting the comment from you. We go
Okay,
ahead,
I'm sorry.
Suzanne. Yeah, no, go ahead.
You
Yeah,
know, so you might wanna check into that. I was
Yeah,
concerned about that.
the regulations aren't clear about the breed piece of it, but I think that, we will definitely include that with the grab board's suggestion and with, Commissioner Shila's comments to have a restriction on weight and, breed.
was there?
I do know, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
He
go
didn't
ahead.
say anything about breed.
I do know that,
He said size, weight and size,
Yeah, that's what
nothing
he
about
said.
breed.
Brought up here in the room as well. So go ahead, Cheryl.
so I do know that other management companies
Yeah.
do have a restriction on breed
Yeah,
and size. But I will double check the state regs and the federal regs if we can actually incorporate that.
well,
Yeah.
do we have let's take it one at a time, because I'd kind of like to get this done tonight if we can. Do we have a guideline on weight that was ever discussed? You know, are we talking about like 40 pounds
In
or
our
20
meetings,
pounds?
yeah, we
What-
talked
what was
about it
that?
in our meeting. It's about 40 pounds.
So
but,
is 40 pounds the
yeah.
right answer for now? We can always change it.
Now, I do want to add, Mr. Chair, that I did have a conversation with David Parsons, who's the animal control
Yeah.
officer for the town, and I mentioned that we will be considering this tonight at the meeting. And I will go back to him as well and see, because something had come up recently, and we need to consider those two options.
So let me, I want to try to get it done, but if we're not there yet. I am actually an expert on dogs because everybody except me and my family loves dogs.
Yeah.
And we have had many dogs over the years. So I speak with a fair amount of expertise. I'm not the dog person. I just buy the dog food. I write the checks, you know. What I can say with expertise, and I know David Parsons very
Yeah.
well. He comes in, because we have animals here.
Okay.
I think we can decide on 40 pounds.
Okay,
And give the executive director discretion to say if David Parsons says it ought to be 35 pounds or
Mhm.
30 pounds. I don't think he's gonna say that.
okay.
I know what he's gonna say. One second, and now I'll call upon you. What he's gonna say is it isn't so much the number of pounds. The number of pounds has nothing to do with how aggressive a dog is. At all. You could have a 100-pound dog that's a couch potato, and you could have a 5-pound dog that bites you every time you walk by. So I know that to be true from a life experience. So I'm comfortable with everybody else. If 40 pounds, with the discretion for the executive director to, be
Mhm.
smaller, but if it's a 100-pound dog, what goes in that dog, is a lot more expensive, and what comes out of that dog has to be picked up, every day. So, there is some reason that point of view,
Mhm.
what goes, to have a sort of a, and the executive director can always make exceptions,
Okay.
number one.
Yeah.
With respect to aggressive dogs, it really isn't the breed. And
Right.
some of them are just nasty little critters that are 10 pounds and they we walk by, and other ones
A lot of
are.
it depends on the owner.
Let's just take a Doberman Pinscher, it's all about their training and how they've been brought up as a puppy and so forth and so on. So I would say, I don't think there's a reason to, at this point,
Mhm.
to try to say this breed or that breed, regardless of what the state law is. I think that the staff should be the ones that when they're approving, each
Yeah.
animal has to be approved before you can bring it in.
Mhm.
Should be, going up and seeing, if that dog acts very, skittish or, frightened, I mean, I think the staff has got to have some discretion as to what to do there.
Okay.
My recommendation.
I like that.
And
Thank
if
you.
we're comfortable with that, we can approve this policy. And if it doesn't work, we can always change it.
Yes, we can amend it.
Can I comment, please?
Janice?
Hey, who says a dog can't have ADHD?
Some of them do, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
so you have to be mindful of that. The other thing is, I believe we discussed this at the RAB board meetings, every single meeting about the dogs. And, we've got some dogs here that are 80, 90 pounds. I just don't like seeing a 12-year-old trying to be in control of an 80-pound dog. That's,
Doing 40 pounds is what we're doing here.
yeah, so, but we have, this is what we have here right now. So.
Good. A comment or question?
It wasn't anything. for
Okay,
I
great.
was just gonna say Scottish Terrier, that my lip like right off, so.
There you go, so Marlene, and then,
The point I want to make is my concern is for the safety and well-being of all of the tenants in general. Now, the issue is, if someone gets mauled by I don't want to mention a breed, but by a dog that's aggressive and large, and they get mauled by them, it's very different than getting a little nip on your finger from a Chihuahua. So I really feel that the issue is that a dog, I know that they can always say if the dog is aggressive, obviously they can be removed. But the point is, what about the preventative measure? Why should people be put at risk of their safety if they can see that there could be an issue given a combination of factors, whether it's size or maybe not a particular breed, but a grouping of different breeds? And as far as state law goes, I mean, there are many landlords that do not accept certain breeds, and it's not illegal. It's not discriminatory because there are many landlords, I would say a majority, that don't allow these dogs on their property. So the issue is, I don't think it would be illegal if Needham Housing Authority would consider not so much restricting breed, but restricting whatever words you want to use. I mean, a size and weight and group, the general group of the dog that could be problematic and not allow it.
okay,
They
thanks for,
could get a dog of a different,
thanks for your input.
well, I hope it will be considered. Thank you.
So,
Hey, can I just react? Can I answer Marlene? Marlene,
Yeah.
I just want to say that the new policy makes sure that the dogs are chipped and
so,
healthy.
if you read through the policy, at any time, the housing authority can revoke an approval.
Yeah.
And in its sole discretion doesn't have to grant an approval in the first place. If there's some reason to believe that, it could be a mutt, you don't, in my opinion, you don't deal with very good comments that were made by Marlene just by breed. It's a judgment call that needs to be made as to whether this is an appropriate dog, big or small, to be, there. And the safety of all the residents need to be taken place. I invite Cheryl, if you want to look into whether maybe we should be adding a breed thing, or maybe it's forbidden.
I will definitely look into that.
We can always amend
Yeah.
it next month, but let's get at least have a policy in place
Yes.
that is 95% good. And if it needs to be fine tuned, we can always do it next time round. Does that make sense to all the commissioners? And
Yes.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept this policy.
you have a motion? Do I have a
Second,
from Janice Bennett, our tenant commissioner. Any further discussion? And by the way, this is a motion to approve the policy that is in our packet with an amendment that puts a 40-pound weight limitation.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
and hearing no further discussion, I'm going to call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And then we get to our final policy to consider, our draft prohibited recreational equipment policy, which is in everybody's board packets. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. It's some dangerous things that have been dangerous in the past, and let me ask Jim, do you have any comments on the draft that's in your packet there?
No, but
Okay, Penny, I see you have your hands up. Ed has no comments.
I do. I mentioned this at the last meeting. The old-fashioned seesaw should be mentioned as unacceptable.
Oh, okay.
There are different ones now with springs and they're very safe, but the old-fashioned one is how I broke my nose.
I'm sorry.
Speaking from experience.
So I think your nose looks beautiful myself.
I've had it straight.
It's Janice. None. I have no comments. I've seen that. We've seen this policy a couple drafts and I think it's great.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve this policy.
Second,
Second from Janice, hearing no
Penny.
further,
it was Penny, actually.
second from Penny. Hearing no further discussion, Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And that is approved unanimously. And so now we'll circle back to, you have another policy?
Yes, it's just amendments to the rent collection policy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And this policy was vetted by council,
Yes,
and he made a lot of grammatical changes.
and we reviewed it as well.
We had reviewed it, and we love it, and if we would approve the amendments to this policy,
Yep.
that would be great.
Jim, have any comments on the one that was in our packet? Ed and Penny, any comments?
No comment.
No comment.
Okay. I will make a motion that we approve the amended rent collection policy that was in our packet.
Second.
Jim got in there second, and hearing no further discussion, Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Now we've done all the policies.
Yes, sir.
right?
Thank
Sorry, I
you.
overlooked. And now let's circle back to the 5-year. This is the fiscal year 2025. It's our calendar year 2025 through calendar year 2029, I think is.
And that's
which
the
hap-
5-year plan.
Which is our 5, and the
annual plan.
2025 annual plan. Any last comments on that from anybody? Hearing none, I will make a motion that we approve the annual 2025 plan and the 5-year 2025 to 2029 plan.
Second.
Withheld.
Hearing no further discussion, I will, Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And there, I hereby close the public hearing at 6:09 PM. We're done with that. We have, Daniel Keene from, I'm gonna take that out of order. At our
Great,
next
thank you.
agenda, we have Daniel Keene from our ARCOM with us, and if you unmute yourself, Daniel, and I guess introduce the reason you are here, because Markham, which is a out firm that has been around 3 decades, I think, that has joined forces with another firm, CBiz. Strong, and has made a proposal to not just the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, the board, to continue the partnership we've had with you over many, as long as I've been around, you've been our auditor. I will just say for the record, Markham, I discovered the other day, just coincidentally, also audits the town of Needham. So I assume you're having a similar discussion with the Board of Selectmen, Needham as well. So, introduce yourself and introduce what's going on here.
Hi, my name's Dan Kane. I'm the director in the Boston office of now CBiz, which we merged with or they acquired us in November 1st. We date back. It's been over 10 years since we've been doing the audit. I don't even, before my time even, I had started at Guider Hurley, who was the original auditor. We were just a small firm in Braintree with about 20 people and merged into Markham in 2019. So now we've become, now with Markham and CBiz together, we're the 7th biggest firm in the country. And yes, actually, one of the things before we merged into CBiz, Markham actually had merged in. I'm not sure if it's Powers and Sullivan that used to do Needham's audit or Melanson, but two firms that specialized in municipal audits. And now I think we do the most municipal audits in New England on top of the most housing authority audits. So our government practice in New England is growing quite substantially through some mergers. So does everyone have a copy of the proposal?
Yes, it's in our board. It has been distributed.
Okay. And sorry, unfortunately, the partner on the engagement, Mike Guider, could not be here today, so I'm in his place. I actually haven't worked on the Needham Housing Authority audit for a few years, but I have worked on it. I haven't had the opportunity to meet Cheryl before, but I did work on the audit when Steve Merritt was the interim director and when Angie Medeiros was the director. So it was a little ways back, but so this proposal is for 5 years, which is typically how we do them. Our fees have increased by I think it was 24,000 last year, and then it'll be 30,000 this year. Part of that is due to the just the increasing inflation. The cost of doing business has went up. It's actually like a 30% discount on our normal standard rates. But we base our proposal off of the historical hours it's taken us to do the job, and that's kind of where the numbers fell out. I didn't get a chance to see, since Mike's been out of the office, I didn't get the chance to see his calculation for the fee. But I know that's how we typically do it. We'll take our historical hours that it's taken to get the job done, and come up with a fee based off of that. And we try to give a discounted rate for the housing authorities from CBiz's normal rates, or Markham's normal rates in the past. Is there any questions on any of the anything within the proposal, or any questions about the audit in general?
Well, on your second question, we receive, of course, the audit report every year. And, I think going back to your time, whenever there's any exceptions noted or anything, it has been routine to invite, whoever is our lead person, to come in and present that to the board and go over it with the executive director, whoever that happens to be at the time. And, satisfy itself that speaking as the board, that, things have been.
Well, I don't care.
Okay. And so forth. Occasionally we get, actually more than occasionally, we get no exceptions noted and just a clean audit. And depending how busy the board is on everything else, we may skip a year from time to time. And I go back about 15 years on this. So I think people are pretty familiar with our supporting us. And satisfied with the process. So I think the audit reports are great. They're filled with very useful information if you take the time to look through the notes, and so forth. I think that, to me, the proposal looks pretty straightforward. You're merging and becoming bigger. I didn't realize it was 7th largest. That's something I missed somehow, if that was in there. That's very significant. I will turn to the other commissioners and see if they have any questions.
No.
Any questions for Jim? None? How about Ed?
No.
Ed
No,
and Janice? Cheryl, how about yourself? Do you have anything you want to bring out here?
So, this is a 5-year proposal, and I did want to bring it before the board's attention. I do enjoy working with Markham, especially Tim Mashante, who I work with, directly, and Kara, as well. It's just great for them to work with. They're very responsive, to my questions, and also if they have questions of me. So it's been a great working relationship. The only thing that I'm a little unclear about, Daniel, if you want to mention about it, is the agreed upon procedures. We haven't done that, but I think the AUPs, the state is sort of ramping up on that process. And what will that mean for us? We haven't conducted any AUPs in the last 3 years since I've been here.
All right, so I'll have to check. So there is a rotation requirement. So we had normally we'd do it with the audit every year. But we are coming up on our 5 years, so we may not have done that. That should be done if it has not been done. So we can look at that afterwards. But why you see there's the alternating years on the proposal, HLC had actually changed it to a biannual AUP. So now they just have, I believe it lines up with the year your PMR is the year you have to do. So it's every other year. So you're either an odd or even year, depending on your PMR. But there are some qualifications to that. If you have a certain amount of findings, so if you have a certain amount of exceptions, I believe it's the number's 10, then you're required to do it annually, or do it the following year. You don't get the year off. Also, if you submit it more than 3 months late, they also require you to do it the next year as well. But if it's clean or has just a couple exceptions and it's submitted timely, actually it can actually be a little bit late, because it's due in 8 months, but they give you like a 4-month grace period. So as long as it's within the year, then you can do it every other year. And that's so
It's good news.
I was gonna say, it seems you must be on the odd years when you need to do the AUP.
Great.
Anything else, Cheryl?
No, sir.
Do you want us to take a vote to accept the proposal?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Any further questions from the commissioners?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll make a motion to accept the proposal as submitted from, are you now officially CBIZ? Is that your
We're
name?
officially, yes, CBIZ.
Markham has disappeared here?
Markham has disappeared. It's actually a publicly traded company too, so that you'll see CBIZ CPAs and CBIZ. There's technically a firm that basically everybody. I'm a shareholder of CBIZ CPAs, but I work for CBIZ, and because the audit firms can't be publicly traded, so our audit is a separate practice.
Markham, rest in peace. But the CBIZ proposal for 5 years of audit services started, I guess, with fiscal 2024 or calendar 2024.
Yep.
Which is our, okay, so that's 24 through 29. 8 for 5, 6, 7, it's 2028.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you,
And I think
Daniel.
you can go get some
Thank
dinner.
you.
That's it. Thanks, Reg and Cheryl. And thank you everyone for inviting me.
Have a good rest of the evening.
Thanks, you too.
All right, back to the rest of the executive director's report.
Okay, sir. So that includes we had just a quick update on our insurance policies. We had a meeting, Reg and I and Celine with Cabinet Risk Strategies to go over our policies, all of which have increased slightly. Drawing a blank. But it was a very good meeting with Todd O'Sheehan. Cannot pronounce his name. I always call him Todd O. And he gives us a great deal of time to go over each of our policies for High Rock Homes LLC and the rentals and Needham Housing Authority and Seabed's Way. I'm sorry, Needham Housing Authority, Seabed's Way, and Captain Robert Cook. State properties are under the state policy, so they're not covered here.
State program, yeah.
State program,
Yeah.
sorry. So that's it. I just wanted to alert you to the fact that we've gone through our policies with our Cabot Rich Strategies agent, and everything is in good working order. One of the things that we will add to our list of policies is a cybersecurity policy. We will add that. But other than that, everything is status quo.
And we are also adding a new directors and officers policy for the NHA Development Corporation that we talked about last month.
That's right.
So the board hasn't reviewed the policies for several years, going back to, I think, to the Peter Pingator era. And one of the things that Todd did offer to do, not for tonight, obviously, but if the board is interested in having a presentation on what insurance policy coverage that we have and what are the limits and so forth. I have a yes on my left here. So one yes, I think should do it for all of us. Maybe for the February meeting, we can schedule him to come in and
Great.
do a review of
That's
our
great.
coverage and answer any questions anybody might have. So, great, we will do that. Meanwhile, those are all been just turned over and renewed. And they're pretty much the same, level of coverage that we've been having for the last few years here. So it also includes a $5 million umbrella policy. So we have the conventional liability policies, and then there's that stop loss policy. If everybody knows what an umbrella policy is. So something really big goes wrong, then it steps in where the limit of liability runs out on a regular policy and covers us if something really nasty happens for some reason. Okay. No votes there. What's our next
The
thing?
next item is a vote. It's the certificate of final completion for the paving project.
You want to mention the budget certifications. You need
Oh,
to
did I go
send
by that?
signatures.
I do need
83.
signatures, folks. I'm sorry about that. The board signatures for our budget certifications, of which I need to upload to EOHLC so that they can officially approve the budget. So I will reach out to Penny and Ed and Janice if you guys have time to come by the office tomorrow to sign the budget
And you have a
certification
document
pages.
for us tonight here.
And I have a document for Reg and Jim to sign
Here.
this evening.
Okay.
So
Yes,
that's,
Sunshine paving.
okay. Sunshine Paving is the certificate of final completion. It's $18,892.15 that will close out this contract with them. You have payment requisitions in your packet,
Starting page 88.
starting on page 88. And there's also on page 93, a punch list of items that have been completed. The architects and contractor, I'm sorry, the engineer and contractor and our maintenance staff director walk the site to go over any outstanding items, and everything is in order. So we want to close out this project and pay them what's left. And they were very, very, very good.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are we with the job?
10.
10,
11.
Yeah.
All right,
riding on a cloud.
Every time I drive down the road, it's always like, I feel like I should be somewhere else. The
we have a
road's so
bowling alley out there. We have an ice skating park, not ice skating, but a roller skating park. Okay, hearing no further comment from the commissioners, I will make a motion that we approve the final payment to Sunshine Paving.
Second,
Attitude. Seconded by Janice, and hearing no further discussion, Rich Foster votes aye for that.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
James Bennett votes aye.
Great. Now, I will say what is in the mind of Jim Burke and Marlene just now, and not time to focus on some paving over at Chambers Street, hopefully next spring or something like that, you know.
Yes, absolutely. I will be
Incredibly
meeting with them.
dangerous situation.
I
Yeah.
am gonna say it for you, and hopefully you will have that meeting, facilitating meeting soon, and look at what's in the capital budget, and let's make sure we can treat all of our residents and all of our properties as well as up here, so,
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
one of
Great
the.
news.
yeah.
One thing that I did want to bring up to the board's attention is the plumbing issues at Captain
Yes,
Robert
let's go to
Drive.
that.
We had a major breach last spring at one of our units, and it cost us over $15,000 to fix that.
Hey, Robert Cook.
Captain Robert
Yeah.
Cook Drive, and now we have a similar situation happening at 2 units at Captain Robert Cook Drive. So I
The
am
second
going,
or three, there's 3 altogether,
well, there will be 3 altogether in that same row.
yeah.
So I would like to engage the services of a mechanical engineer. We'll reach out to our architects for a recommendation of a mechanical engineer to assess the problem so that we can move forward with the solution. We will need to move the families out, those 2 families out of their units, either temporarily until the problem is fixed. But I just don't want to get into another situation where the bill is going to be so high to fix the problem. I'd like a mechanical engineer to give us an assessment on,
In general,
of
what's going on,
what's going on,
and
yes.
whether we maybe have
systemic,
a systemic problem that
Yeah.
might start cropping up in other units that, you know,
yeah.
so.
So I will keep you posted on that. I will reach out to Maria, cannot pronounce her last
And
name.
this has, the reason the tenants have to move out is,
There's sewage coming up into their units.
so it's a problem with the slab, something goes into the slab,
That's correct.
and the pipe is broken.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good. So we'll have to jack the floor and get down there and assess the problem and find out what's going on. And is this something that can be?
So
is this-
your recommendation is not just to focus on these additional 2 units, but to see if they're just the first of a wave of failures that we might be seeing because
Yeah.
of substandard
Yes.
construction that took
Yeah.
place in 1980.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And
right.
so I do have pictures of the first unit and the pipes were just badly rotted out.
Yeah.
Rotted out. So now here we are again. So it's a very serious situation.
Was this something that would have been covered under the Seabuds Cook redevelopment or not? Not that I'm not recommending we wait, but just
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I do want to have a conversation with Maria, and let her know. We brought this up with them, and I know that they did a needs assessment, property conditions report, and I
Yeah.
don't know that this came
So,
out of that.
yeah, so this has just cropped up. They did know there was this one failure last spring. But it wasn't something that kind of hinted at the fact that there might be a more widespread and systemic problem.
Yeah,
And so Cheryl is reaching out to say,
okay.
yeah,
What's going
we just
on?
don't know, because there's so
Yeah.
many things on the list. You know, did you make this a systemic thing worth working, or did you just figure it was just a one-off?
Yeah.
Because it might be a systemic thing, and we want to bring them in actually as part of this engineering
Yeah.
evaluation. And then whether or not, even if it, let's say they do include it, it may not be something that can wait a year
Yeah,
to do, you
understood.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's something we gotta deal with now.
It hadn't been planned for as part
Right.
of the modernization.
Right, whereas
And I'm not saying we'd wait.
Yeah.
there's many other things that, you know, need to be done, but they're not sleeping into the, you know,
Okay.
department stuff, yeah, so.
I just wanna, weigh in here. We had that problem over at 2 units. I wanna say 56 and 54. That happened 10, 12 years ago. And yes, they had to relocate. They had to bring pods onto the property so people could store their stuff. It's not a good situation. And that makes me very sad that this is occurring again, and why that study has not been, looked at back then. Let me think who was here.
Janice, let me suggest you get that information to Cheryl
Yeah.
tomorrow, and see if you can help her look through the records we might have on that are in the archives, and figure out who was the main, and you know, whether it's Gary or somebody
Yeah.
before Gary that was in charge of it, because that would be also very valuable information that.
It was
You know.
definitely Gary.
Okay, well, Gary, we still in touch with from time
Yes,
to
yeah,
time.
we're very
He's over
in
at
touch
the
with
Medford Housing Authority.
And let me just
FEMA.
say, it wasn't until he was just about to leave before he found out what the problem was in the parking lot here where I live, where we had to spend that ridiculous amount of money with
Well,
G.A. McCarthy, who is a very good outfit that helped us out there getting the water out of this parking lot that, turned it into.
Great. So, that's great information. So, all right. So that's just a heads up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Stay
okay.
tuned for further.
Stay tuned for
Yeah.
more information to come.
All right, we're on our
And then the
executive.
final part of the
Yeah,
executive
go ahead.
report, it's just that, I think in our last meeting, I had mentioned that I would, make some correction to my 2025 goals and my 5-year goal, strategic goal statement. So that's in your packet as well.
Starting on page 94.
94. And I did correct the assistant executive director.
So there's, I guess page 94 are the goals for this year.
Yes, sir.
2, 4, 6 bullets there, in capitals, and then starting on 95 is your 5-year plan.
Mhm.
I think what we agreed to last, month during the executive director's salary review and performance review and setting goals, that we would set the 2025 goals
Okay.
tonight. And certainly provide comments on the 5-year goals, which are very ambitious. It looked like, good for Cheryl Gosman, good for the school superintendent, whichever one, but wanted to ask that for the commissioner's comments on these, page 94 goals, the 6
Yes.
bullets there. Because that's what we're going to use to evaluate Carol at the end of fiscal, and calendar 2025. Jim, do you have any comments?
No.
Ed and Penny, do you have any comments? You're on mute, Ed and Penny. We can't hear you. Janice, do you have any comments?
All
on
right. I just unmuted us.
I'm just curious to know if there's any progress to be reported so far.
Progress on what?
The goals.
They are starting January 1st, 2 weeks ago here, so anything you want to report here?
We have not hired an assistant executive director yet, but we're close. And working on meaningful delegation of tasks to staff. We are we have grant opportunities that we will be reporting to you all on. Better resident engagement. So these are really just I think great goals to work towards for 2025.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Ed and Penny, and then Janice?
Well, I just was wondering why it hasn't been brought up about the compliance and how much money we stand to lose. And if that's gonna affect Cheryl's goals in getting something she may want done with that money that we may stand to lose.
What money are you referring to? Compliance?
Yay, vote, the no vote.
What? Oh,
Yes, yeah.
The MBTA compliance zoning vote.
so how does that relate to Cheryl's goals?
It may interfere with any money she may have been looking forward to getting with regard to programming and possibly hiring people.
So, actually, none of the money, the penalties for not being in compliant apply to any money that Cheryl has or we have in our budget for you on the state side or the federal side here. I will be talking about that in a minute when we get to the PRI, where what it affects is the Linden Street, redevelopment.
Yeah, I know.
But it doesn't affect our grant, our resident services coordinator grants or anything else like that.
That's good to know. Good to know.
Any other comments or nobody else has, I have two. I have a very minor one.
Okay.
Which I'll do second, and then just one that I do think I'd like to comment on, which is on the first bullet, hire a highly qualified assistant executive director before the end of the year. I would wish that would happen by the end of the first 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's
Yeah.
hard to find
Yeah.
the right person. It's really hard. I wish it would happen tomorrow, I would but, I wish it would happen at the end of the first quarter, by the end of the first quarter. But I think, by the end of the year, I think, we all see how hard you're working. We don't want you to melt down and have your head explode and everything else like that. And I think it's really critical that you find your fearless deputy leader here. So I would suggest, if you're okay with it, Cheryl, and everybody else, that read by the end of June.
Okay.
2025. Does anybody else have a comment on that?
I'd say sooner than that, but I agree with you. It should be tomorrow, possibly.
Yeah.
But I like the 6 months because number 2 isn't solely contingent upon that.
Well, when I say by the end of June, on board, so I mean, do you have anybody in the pipeline at this point?
I did have some options available to me, but I have decided not to move down that road.
Well, and another thing is, I certainly, speaking as one commissioner, if we need to engage an executive search firm and pay a search fee.
Yeah.
Have you considered
I
doing
haven't
that?
considered doing that, yeah.
And would the other commissioners be okay with that if
Yes.
she did that?
Yeah, and the issue really is having that qualified person. The duties that the person would be engaged in are very complicated, and we need a knowledgeable
Yeah.
person. And we need someone that can can supervise the staff. So
Yeah.
if I'm not there, the staff can trust their leadership ability. So it's really making sure that I have a person that is highly qualified and that we can trust to in their knowledge of the work, of the scope of work,
It's a tough job.
and to supervise the staff. I would love my staff to be able to depend on that person in terms of leasing and et cetera. So it's tough because those types of positions go for way more than what we're offering.
Okay, and amen, you know, but I think, you know, if you, you know, it can take, you know, if you want a month or two to find the right person and another month to, you know, make an offer and have that accepted.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's you know, people don't quit overnight, you know, if they're really good, they take a week or two or so. So I think, you know, you can get to May or June pretty, you know, right from now.
Yeah.
Even if you're, using an executive, headhunter, you know. Search
That's
firm.
true.
So, if nobody else has any other comments on this, I'm gonna make a motion. Oh, let me make my number two nitpicky thing. Can we make it, change the bullets to numbers 1 through 6
Okay.
and not make it all caps? You know, this is about as nitpicky as you can possibly get, but every time I see something in caps like that, I feel somebody's yelling at me. You know, you get something in Twitter or something, you know, you get it in like text message, it's all caps, and like, you know, it's like, maybe I'm just old fashioned, I don't know, you know, so.
All right.
But, you know, that, I'm not quite making that part of my motion, but,
Okay.
Sometimes that
making-
works in reverse, Reg, when they want to be nice.
that we accept Cheryl's proposed 2025 goals. With the amendment of the goal number 1 being on board by the end of June 2025. And do I have a second on that? Second there, and any further discussion? And hearing none, Reg Foster votes in favor of these goals.
Jim Flanagan votes in favor.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
So maybe you can just republish them without the caps and the number, and so we'll all tuck it away in our Cheryl files and come back in December there. Okay.
Reg, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Please.
As we proceed on this agenda, could we look at all the reports as one entity? So I think they're all wonderful, and I'd like to just say they're great. And vote on them that way if we have to vote.
We actually did vote on all the reports earlier on the consent agenda, but you can say they're wonderful now if you want.
Yeah, and actually, I'm a little jealous having been the service coordinator because I didn't have a budget. I
The
had
resident coordinating reports, that's on the agenda F. G, yes, we haven't quite got there yet.
Well, that's what I was referring to.
Okay, great. Sorry, I thought you meant, yeah, I misunderstood you. All right, so we will go to, why don't we finish agenda F, you know, the resident services coordinator reports as we started up. That was very impressive too, I thought. All those reports start on page 91 and go on for you know, amazing number of pages here, 123. Is there anything
It's really just an update the board on the work of resident service coordinators, the great work that they're doing. There's no vote that's needed to approve the reports. But it's important to me to share with you the work that they're doing for our residents. And as Sue Diazizo mentioned earlier, she brought a letter came into the office, very warm and very thoughtful letter about the work that Lori and Liz are doing with residents. I mentioned to Lori at the last, at our December meeting, how beautiful the Linden Chambers Community Room looked. She did a stellar job at decorating that room for Christmas. So Lori does a lot of thoughtful and kind work, and Liz as well is extremely kind and thoughtful, and very ambitious about programming for our residents. So more to come on that, because Liz is doing a lot of work with youth, applying for youth grants and really reaching out to the high school students, providing some work activities for them.
And Cheryl, I just really want to thank you for bringing a lot of that in. That reflects on you. It really does. We've never had as much programming for the residents in years and years and years. And that's due to you, and you should give yourself a pat in the back. Really. I
Yes,
know
they're
how
doing-
appreciative the residents are.
They really are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Christmas, I meet with them weekly, and it's like Christmas, I get a wonderful report of the work that they're doing. So.
Great. All right, so I'll go back to boring old preservation and redevelopment initiative, PRI, agenda item E here. There's a lot going on, and I'm gonna try to not get bogged down on anything too much, but so the board is, knowledgeable what's happening here. I will start with thanking, Jim, who has been shadowing me and gets hundreds of emails, a month. And Cheryl, who, unlike every other executive director, your 5 previous predecessors, is somehow crazy enough to take on what we're trying to do here. Although a lot of it, we have very good consultants helping us, but a lot of it still comes back to her desk, where she's got to weigh in on stuff. So thank you very much. Starting with the Linden Street, we're calling it the Linden Terrace redevelopment project. Linden Terrace was the original name of the Linden Terrace project back in 1957 when it was redeveloped. So it's been readopted as what the new improved redevelopment will be if we get there and when we get there.
Excuse me, Reg. You said it was redeveloped. What was it before it was redeveloped? You said Linden Terrace, but what were the buildings and things like before? Do you know?
7 to 1961, they developed the half of what we know as Linden Street now. So the north half was developed, I'm sorry, the middle half was developed, the part near Chambers Street was developed first. And then that was 32 units there. And then 40 units were built in the second phase that went from 1961 to 1964. So that's the part towards Oak Street, towards the north, towards the town center. And then starting in 67, the town gave the housing authority the land that the Chambers sits on right now. And between 67 and 72.
No, what was there before?
It was just wetlands.
Oh, okay. So there's no housing there.
No, nothing. The High Rock School area was all wetlands, and that's why it flooded a year and a half ago down there, is because it's just a big filled-in marsh. So.
Okay.
So, first of all, we all know that the no votes prevailed in the MBTA Communities Act referendum. However, the good news is those of you read to the end of the report that came in from Peabody and HSC is we learned this week, notwithstanding that we were invited to submit the full application in the final round of funding that we've been working on. So even though town is not in compliance as of Wednesday morning, It hasn't interfered with us going forward with the application process. There was we were worried that that would be a problem. But I guess they did judge that they weren't going to punish Needham Housing Authority or the town of Needham for trying to do the right thing and having more housing. And so that is good news. Needham has 6 months to comply. There was an extension of the deadline I think we know about. I believe the planning board is meeting next Tuesday to resubmit the base plan as our compliance plan. And there's talk of having a special town meeting at the end of February to adopt that base plan. That happens to coincide with when the deadline of when our application goes in. It's February 27th, Thursday. So we're still in the game, which is good news here. Any questions about that or comments? I know some of us worked on trying to get the yes votes to prevail. We still have $1 million worth of grant funding that we've been awarded that we had planned to use for that project. Because we're not in compliance, we can't put that as part of our application. So it's still damaging us, but at least we're still in the game and we can submit an application. So we really do need ideally to have that special town meeting vote at the end of February to get the town into compliance. Any comments or questions from anybody?
If it passes, would they be able to have another referendum?
Yes, they would. Yes, they would. Next is Mr. Burke sued the Needham Housing Authority in early December, objecting to the redevelopment of Linden Street. And since that time, with no need to have a executive session like we did last time around, since that time, the Housing Authority filed a response to the lawsuit. Then the plaintiff gets to respond to the response, which Mr. Burke did, and then the Housing Authority gets to respond to that response, which just happened earlier this week. And that all those filings are now public information and, before the Superior Court. And the next step is to wait for a hearing to be scheduled by whatever judge is assigned to. Basically, I can forward commissioners copies of these documents if people are interested in. But basically, the Needham Housing Authority, on advice of counsel, has asked for the judge to exercise summary judgment and dismiss the case on it because it does not have merit. And you can read for yourself the reasons that are being put forward for that. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Otherwise, I'm going to tomorrow send you the file.
Nope.
Okay. All right. We are on the Seabeds and Cook Preservation Modernization Project. There's a fairly good report in your that was sent to you as a supplement to your packet from Cambridge Housing Authority. Where we left off, as everybody knows, we had to discontinue the Section 22 streamline voluntary conversion approach because of it was discontinued by HUD due to a lawsuit. We did resubmit our Section 18 Section 18 blend application at the end of October, and lo and behold, it was approved mid-December. It was December 13th. I think Cheryl got the letter, which I think was a new world speed record for approving things, but reflected that we had already submitted it before. In parallel, one of the disadvantages of doing this particular approach is it had very high standards of what everything that had to be brought up to snuff and requires you to do this capital needs assessment that was completed by the end of December. And then they added up all the numbers of how much everything was going to cost and how many much money in reserves are have to be set aside. And, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have lots of reserves and get lots of, you know, nice to have things done, except it does mean that you have to raise more money. And so when everything was added up for both Seabeds and Cook, the price of the overall project went up to $39 million from around $30 million. And when and by the way, this is what they call the total development cost. It's not just the construction. Construction is 27.5 million, but then you have to add the financing fees, soft costs, set aside the operating reserve, developer fees, and so forth. It adds up to the 29 million. I'm just giving you a rough sense of this because this is all going to be written down in a memo to the board. Which is in progress right now. And when you look at all the possible sources of funds that you can get, except for tax credits, you remember from the last year or two of us discussing it, we don't want to compete with ourselves with Linden Street. So we can't go to the main source of financing, which is the tax credit round that we're doing for Linden Street. So you go to everything but that, and assuming we could get $5.6 million from the Needham CPA, we still were like $2.8 million short, and with no way of really raising that money. So our consultants have been working this. They sort of saw this coming through December and into January. And the new recommendation is to break the Seabed and the Cook projects into two subphases that are done sequentially. And you start with let's say Seabeds first, and you do all that renovation and modernization, and then you turn to doing Captain Robert Cook second. And that has a number of advantages. One advantage is there isn't $5.6 million available from the Needham CPA, even if we can convince them to give it to award it to us. That just plain that much money in the piggyback. That it always gets replenished every year, but there's about $2.7 million that comes in every year. But there's not enough in the accumulated balances so far, but they might be enough in the accumulated balances to do a sort of sequential funding from the CPA. So that's they're kind of breaking this into two projects, Seabeds and Cook, and looking at how the funding sources apply to that, particularly the CPA funding sources, because you can only fund certain kind of renovations from CPA funding. It has to be preservation, and that means building envelope stuff. It can mean security, life safety systems, fire systems, windows, exterior doors and walls, and insulation, and so forth. So there's a sort of a complicated analysis on that going on right now, and then we're now working on the second draft of a memorandum like we've always received from Cambridge Housing Authority that explains all of this in plain English. And if not making a recommendation to the board, because ultimately the board has to make the final decision, at least lays out all the facts in an understandable fashion so that we can make a decision here. Part of what's also challenging is the Linden Street project depends on the Seabeds and Cook project going. Because of the Faircloth units, remember those suckers, so we need to start at least one of the two, Seabeds or Cook, maybe Seabeds, let's say. So you free up enough Faircloth units so they can be moved over to Linden Street and be used to do phase 1A of Linden Street. And so there's a dependency in that. There's another dependency in that we're short of funding. But when we get going with the Linden Street project, because we are the 50-50 co-developer of that with Peabody HSC, when that project financing closes, right now the numbers are that we would get a $1.2 million developer fee for doing that project. And we can take that $1.2 million and repurpose it over here to subsidize seabeds and make up that gap that I was talking about. So all that is like being considered. I think it's going to take us another couple weeks to get this analysis finished so that I can understand it. And then I'll probably go to Cheryl and Jim and say, read this, do you understand it, and then we might need to have a special board meeting between now and our February 20th meeting.
Okay.
In order, just on this one topic, for us to kind of do our fiduciary duty thing. What have I forgotten here? Any questions or comments on that?
I'll comment. What you're trying to say is we can't visit the same well twice in 1 year. And if we don't start the Seabeds project probably first, I think we'll get more Faircloth unit out of there than we would Seabeds, because there's more units at Seabeds, and we go from there.
You're absolutely right. That's, really amazing that we are rotating this, although we've gone through this 3 or 4 times. Yes, there's 46 units at Seabeds. And the other good news is they put out new regulations on December 26th that cover the RAD Section 18 blend, that are largely good news for us, meaning that we can get 90% of the 46 units. So that's 41 units of Faircloth that would be freed up, which are badly needed to move all those over to Linden Street to make the 76 units at Linden Street that we would be building phase 1A go. So it
Can't do one without if we don't do the other. So. And
the other thing is, realistically, just like we're doing Linden Street in 2 phases, phase 1A and phase 1B, practically we would have maybe decided to do Seabeds and Cook in 2 phases. We had all the money in the world and we could do it. We wouldn't want to necessarily do everything at the same time anyway, because it's so much disruption for the tenants. So.
Okay, I have an additional comment on that, Reg. That was just my lead up. I would hate to see that Captain Robert Cook got left out into phases. Like we've had phases in the kitchens, we've had phases in the siding. The only 2 good things we've had is due to Cheryl Gosman's getting all the roofs done and I want to say all the paving of the roads done. Everybody else we've had has been done in phases, and it seems that families get left out. And I just want to say, because of this, maybe we're having all those under infrastructure problems because there's been no mechanical engineering done. And when they come, when the Fed comes to inspect us and when the housing authority does their inspections. You know, you gotta look out for that stuff because the families are aware the most water is used and the most electricity and the most of all infrastructure. And nobody's ever looked out for that. And it's been coming. It's been coming and you gotta recognize that. So I just want to put that out there as a resident. As a resident.
You're absolutely right. You know, it isn't, you know, I generally if you go to the property conditions report that we originally did, and then
I have it right there.
and and then it was updated and reevaluated by BHNA when they came in. It was always the overall condition of Seabed's Way is fair, which is not great, but it's, you know, the overall condition of Cook is poor. So, you know, just making the decision to go forward with Seabeds because it generates more Faircloth units for the Linden project is not necessarily totally the right decision because the need is more on the Cook apartments than it is on the Seabeds apartments.
This is true, and it's a big way station on which way we want to go, but you got to figure it could cost us a lot more if we don't do Captain first. It's a hard decision. We're gonna have to get that contract or that, yeah, we gotta look at that. We have to look at it. Because we could end up with people being left in the lurch.
And I've reviewed the first draft of the paper that CHA is working for us, the memo, and you know, it didn't really cover that particular issue. And I think that needs to be in there as a consideration.
Yeah, you gotta look at it. You have to look at it.
So, so that's just a little bit of you know, headlines of what's coming there. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead.
If I could just add the 39 number is scary, right? Having followed some of the ebb and flow, seemed like we started 25 to 27 when it was under the
Section 22, yeah.
Which was, I think that was a lesser scope thing. Now we've got a forced to do larger scope with 18, but then obviously inflation and we've done value engineering in the meantime to try to bring it down too, but it's just that upward pressure.
It is, and you know, I guess there's a good news and a bad news on this, but the interesting thing is, when this first draft of the CNA report came in at the beginning of December, everybody go, oh, no, this is the wrong answer, and go back and come back with a better answer. So there's been 3 iterations by the end of December that finally was, you know, it's not changing. This is the reality of what it is. And then the second thing that's interesting is then when you circle back to the original cost estimates of doing ideally everything we would want to do from first deets a year and a half ago, and then BHNA, you know, last fall, we have a 50% schematic design now. When we just had special design, high level back in the envelopes with the deeds. It keeps coming up with this pretty much the same number. Same number of things need to be done. You know, and you know, reflecting these are 40-year-old buildings that, you know, and I'm sure that were taken in construction at the time, and
do it right.
And you know, so partly we've got to face that somehow we've got to find this money and do it right if they're going to last in the next 40 years, or we're going to find ourselves, you know, not us, we'll all be gone, but you know, our successors. You know, we need to figure out how to get fixed right. But this is reality where it is. Surprise, surprise, there isn't enough money. You know, anybody who's shocked by that, you know, we probably all saw it coming. So, any other questions on that? Let me go to the CPA funding application. So, I mentioned that one of the things is that we've starting to get the balance calculations that's available for Seabeds for housing in total. And there's not 5.6 million for us. The other thing that happened, and I mentioned this last month, but the Charles River Center, a very incredibly worthy organization, and I think everybody knows what it is, came in with a $3.5 million request to redevelop East Militia Heights area. We were interested in that plot of land. It's right across the street from them up in the North Hill area. So there's even more demand on money that isn't there that's going to be considered by the CPC. One of the things that we're encouraging the town to look at is a commitment that's a multi-year commitment. That's one thing. And the other thing we're encouraging the town to look at is using a bonding approach. So just to give you some semi-real numbers. Well, first, just to say that that's how Town Hall was redeveloped, and that's how Rosemary Pool was redeveloped, and that was how Emery Grover was redeveloped with CPA funds. Is instead of just making an outright grant of money, they dedicated the CPA funding stream to paying for bonds, paying the interest and mortgage. So if typically Needham has gotten $800,000 a year, plus or minus every year, in tax receipts. And instead of giving us 800,000, if you then use it to fund a 30-year bond at 4%, a municipal general municipal bond, that actually yields $13 million. Now, whether the town would want to consider something of that, they've definitely not bought into that whatsoever. And there's also the town finance, the chief executive finance officer, it feels that it might not be possible to do for an entity that isn't for a town entity. So those things are being looked at as well. So
Could we take out a mortgage to do our own financing?
we do that already. So with our repositioning, we all remember that we go up $1 million more per. We take a certain amount of that $1 million and we invest it in a 40-year mortgage at 6.19%, which is what the current assumption is here.
Yeah,
And it yields $19 million of capital.
yeah.
So that's how we pay for our first mortgage.
Yeah.
For doing that.
Yeah.
And the same function works over at Linden Street as well. What makes Linden Street work is not only that first mortgage you can pay for, but also you go get that tax credit financing that makes up, and other sources make up the fund. So yes, is the answer.
Yeah.
But using CPA revenue stream to do that, that's never been done in this town before for a housing project of any kind, and it's never been done for an entity that wasn't the town of Needham or, like the school department or something like that. So definitely not necessarily something the town would want to do.
Yep.
The date to put in your calendars is the 5th of February at 7 o'clock in the Highland Room at Town Hall, which is when both of NHA's funding requests are going to be presented in detail to the PC. And I was haven't sent everybody, but tomorrow I'm going to send everybody the detailed application that went in for both this project and also for the 150,000 request for High Rock Estates affordable housing land use study. Before I get to that latter one, any other questions or comments about the perils of Pauline that we're going through here with the CPC?
Where is the meeting being held on February 5th?
Town Hall in the basement, Highland Room, Highland Conference Room.
At 7?
7, yeah.
Thank you.
It's not a public meeting, public hearing meeting, by the way. It's just so they won't be taking public comments, but that will happen in March. They will have public comment, public hearing.
Can one observe?
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can attend, absolutely. Either by Zoom, it'll be online too, as well as in person.
Okay.
So, no other questions on that. The High Rock Estates, affordable housing land use study, again, this is, again, to refresh everybody's memory. Says this time next year, if we could add 150,000, it would be the right time to hire a land use consulting firm to say, we have 25 contiguous acres up here in the High Rock neighborhood and 60 tear downs on it. And what is the optimal redevelopment plan there? Or what are the 2 or 3 options? We know option number 1 is to take the 60 bungalows and replace them with 60 duplexes, and now you have 120 units, and that would be a huge win.
Yeah.
But maybe, given the huge shortfall of housing in Needham, maybe we should be considering something that's more dense than that. Maybe we should consider townhouses up and down, that, kind of like you see in other neighborhoods. To kind of do an analysis, but also have a community engagement process with the neighbors, with the planning board, with other interested parties, to see what was the right, maybe coming out of that with here's 2 or 3 different development options, with the baseline option probably just to be the duplexes, because that can be done by right, given the zoning. But here's some more dense development that might be interesting to the town and the neighborhood and to us. The town council is cast doubt as to whether this is a legal use of CPA funds, which is being addressed. And one of the things that it may be a concern is, again, CPA funding being used on to create new housing versus to replace existing housing. And it's not eligible for replacing existing housing, i.e. the 60 units that are there, but it is eligible to be used to create new housing. So if you took the 60 units and turned it to 120 units, which we can do by right, then maybe half of that planning effort would be eligible for CPA funding and half would not. And ergo, we may, and this analysis is also being done right now, with help from Mass Housing and with help from our friends at the Community Preservation Coalition, of which our executive director is a member of the Coalition Advisory Council here. So Stuart Saganor is the executive director, very, very wonderful, helpful agency there, not an agency, but what do they call themselves? I guess they're an
Regional
advocacy.
Steering Committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At any rate, it may be that we can cure any issue the town council might have by saying 50, it's a thing. We need $150,000, but $75,000 would come from non-CPA funding and 75,000 would come from CPA funding, which is what we did for Seabeds and Cook. Those of you with good memories, that's what we're doing right now. So that, in that case, I wanted to alert the board to that because that isn't exactly what we approved, and see if the board would have a concern if we, we adapted to town council and changed this proposal to be a 50-50 funding. And interestingly enough, that's exactly what we did in 2019 when we got that grant, which led to the hiring of the Cambridge Housing Authority, and apparently was a legal use of CPA funding, even though they planned everything that we're now doing today, that seemed to pass muster. So any comments from anybody on if we kind of
Any means necessary.
Yeah, we gotta keep going.
So I will say one thing, that I was saving from 10 minutes ago from Janice, from what you said. Everything you said about the Captain Robert Cook units relative to seabeds is absolutely true. And then, you know, but if you've been in any of those high rock units, you know, they're even longer in the tooth, you know.
Oh, yeah, oh, I've been in a few.
Yeah, and so I really feel if we can do it, if we can get there, you know, we really need to recognize that, you know, of all of our infrastructure and bricks and mortar, that area is even, you know, a higher priority to do something better than we're doing for those families. So,
They deserve
okay.
it too.
Stay tuned. If there are no other, questions on the, monthly reports, we have the administrative PRI budgetary update. We're actually making progress and gathering and doing sort of year-end audit of everything we did in 2024. And part of that has to do with signing our agreement with with Peabody and AHSC. That agreement that we approved, the LDDA, the Land Disposition and Developer, you know, Designation Agreement, is like 2 exhibits away from getting signed. We've approved that, and it's still in the present form that it's in, but it's not signed. That hasn't stopped everybody on our new developer partners team, you know, just being full speed ahead to get everything done that we're doing here. And the other thing to report is that we, in our December, I think it was 2nd meeting, we approved the formation of the NHA Development Corporation, which is a 501c3, 3C3 nonprofit organization wholly owned by the Needham Housing Authority. That was formally incorporated and registered on January 2nd. So if you go to the, you know, Secretary of State Corporation database and type in NHA Development Corporation, you will see for that that's been filed. And the last thing to bring up here is in your packet is a Needham Housing Authority agreement that's starts on page 98, the NHA pre-development cost cash flow facilitation agreement. One of the things we've struggled with the entire year, and the year before that, is with the, even though we have funding, getting our funders from either the state ARPA funds or from the Needham, from the town of Needham to to pay us promptly so we can pay our vendors promptly has been, you know, something that, you know, all Cheryl's hair is gone gray in the last year trying to get that to happen. And, you know, and you wouldn't know it because he has to diet every day, you know, but no, seriously, it's just been entire, and it's a cash flow problem. So our partners about a month ago said, hey, you know what, we can help out with that. We'd be happy because they, you know, have deep pockets with, you know, to execute this agreement here, which what it says, and there are 2 versions of this, just the Needham Housing Authority version is in here, but the otherwise identical. It says, if we get a bill from BH&A, you know, today, and it's approved tomorrow, they will advance us. It's like a revolving credit agreement. They will advance, in this case, the Needham Housing Authority, $100,000 to pay that bill promptly, once the board has approved it for payment, of course. But, and then when we get reimbursed from either currently it's from the state ARPA funds, which has taken months, like literally some of the bills that have been paid this week or last week are invoices that have been before them from January 2024, right, Cheryl?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there've been hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been paid months and months and months late because we can't get the money out of the state because the bureaucracy and the approval mechanism is very, very difficult. And this would allow us to pay our vendors promptly, and there's no interest being charged on this advance. And then when we actually get the money in from the state or down the road, when we start doing the same thing with the town of Needham, because we still have $1 million of funding from them that we haven't used up yet. Then we can repay it. The agreement is with AHSC, the Affordable Housing Services Collaborative. And then again, they brought this as a proposal. BH&A was it was very embarrassing to be in the position that we were in with them. And it really solved the problem. Being a credit facility, I think, it's not something that Cheryl and I can just decide to do or anything. It's something that the board has to feel comfortable about. And that's why it's on the agenda for tonight. Any questions?
Question?
Go ahead, Mr. Treasurer.
If we had a bank line of credit and we were withdrawing funds to pay bills quickly, we'd be paying interest on that amount of money that we withdraw. Is the situation with our partner, are they going to charge interest on the money out of this revolving fund?
No.
Okay. Fantastic.
Good.
It's a problem. They are now our 50% co-developer partner. In another world that isn't Needham, but we are totally unique. Nobody's ever seen any small town like us or any small housing authority be able to do all this pre-development work ahead of time before the developer partner comes on board. Nobody's ever seen them raise this much money from either our ARPA funds or our town funds, and do that. And so they said, we're here as your partner because of what you've been able to do. But as your partner, it's embarrassing to us that you're not paying the vendors on time. It makes us look bad, and then on top of that, I lost my train of thought. Forgot what I was going to say, but they need this to go forward smoothly in 2025, and this will help us get caught up completely so that, you'd be in a normal situation where you get a invoice from a vendor in month 1 and you pay it in month 2, as opposed to month 5 or 10, and they need that to be happening in 2025. So that's why it's in their interest to do this as our 50-50 partner. And
Nice
it's
to
not,
be able to pay your bills, sorry. Nice to be able
Yeah,
to pay your
exactly.
bills 30-day net,
exactly, and Cheryl, do you want to comment on this as well?
Well, one of the things that Reg is humbly leaving out is that he had a meeting with an EOHLC official and spoke about the problems we're having with having our ARPA funding released. And that actually pushed forward those invoices being processed as quicker than they normally would have with our ARPA funding. So it sounds like we're in a tough situation where we're not paying the bills, we're not able to pay the bills because we're up against the EOLC bureaucracy. But Reg had a great meeting with someone and they pushed everything through in a manner that I haven't seen happen in a long time. So we're pretty much in good shape in terms of what we owe presently, BH plus A. Of course, the train doesn't stop. We're going to have bills, invoices coming down the road. And now we have a better mechanism in place to get those invoices paid on time. But Reg has really been working super hard, talking with most important people that have moved this needle forward for us with EOHLC and ARPA funding.
And if we don't have to use this facility, we won't.
Mhm.
And maybe, my guess is there's a half-life to.
It's a
the
great
butt kicking that,
Yeah.
might have had some
It has
success and
been
then it
a
wears off here.
terribly long process to
And,
get.
and then the other thing is, we haven't dealt with the town for several months. But we do have $1 million that,
Yeah.
a very substantial chunk of change is very essential this year.
Yeah,
And the town is not as bad as EOHLC, but they're not speedy either.
right, and they want us to pay the bill first.
Yeah, and they do want the bill paid first, and so pay first, show us evidence of payment, and then they only want to meet quarterly to go over,
Yes.
this and improve this, so again, having this facility in place is
Yeah.
important.
It's very.
And again, the grant itself from EOHLC, the ARPA grant, is to the Needham Housing Authority.
Yeah,
And the grant from the town for the 1.386, pre-development for
Mhm.
Linden Street
Mhm.
is also the Needham Housing Authority. So they can't just sort of step in the middle. We have to be, if we tried to change who the money went to, then we might, foul that up.
It's an interest-free working capital loan backed by those ARPA funds. Yes.
Yes. And unsecured.
Yes, yeah, so,
So, we thought it was a pretty good deal.
yep,
yeah. it's a
And
great-
very great, and they proposed it, it wasn't even something we
Yeah.
dreamed up, they said, can we help you out this way?
Yep.
Which just again, strikes me as another piece of evidence, of many pieces of evidence that we really
Yeah.
did select the right,
Yes,
partner
exactly, yeah.
so.
Nice.
All right, so if there's no further questions, I'm gonna, make a motion that we, approve the NHA pre-development cost cash flow facilitation agreement that's in your board packet, starting page 98, and it's twin, which is not in your board packet, but was otherwise identical, which says, it's called the NDC, the NHA Development Corporation pre-development cost cash flow facilitation agreement. Do I hear
Second,
any further? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes yes.
Jim Flanagan votes yes.
Ed Scheidler votes yes.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Very much. Okay, we're done with that item. Anything
you,
on
Ed.
Cook School after school report update here?
Yes, we had a pottery program, for the fifth grade after school program, 3 children showed up for that. We're still struggling to get Brittany to attend the homework program, we offered homework program at High Rock, Linden Community Room. No children showed up for that. So we're, taking another approach to try to, ignite some programming that, would get our students interested in getting some educational support. That's it.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Bye, guys. Thanks for coming. And,
I have a question, sorry.
yes, go ahead, Janice.
Cheryl, you mentioned that the pottery program also extended itself over to the Linden Chambers Community Room for the students at High
Your
Rock.
Your question once again, Cheryl was distracted for a second there. Go ahead.
Okay, Cheryl, are you saying that they extended the pottery program to Linden and Chambers for the High Rock Estates students?
No, the pottery program was at Captain Weber Cook Drive. The homework program is what's being extended at Linden Chambers for High Rock students.
Okay, with the same tutors?
For High Rock students.
Yeah, with the same tutors, like from Babson and,
This is the high school tutoring club. The Babson and Nobles are out until the spring.
okay. I just wasn't aware that it had been extended, the whole, homework program.
Yes, we do robocall, we went door to door, we've done, it's a little frustrating that, you know, we have these resources for, our families who are not taking advantage
Was
of
there
it.
anything in the board packet about it?
About
You know, like
last
a
week,
flyer?
the last board packet, there was information about the program being extended to the High Rock families.
With all those colorful? Yeah, it was in one of those, yeah, okay. That's interesting to know you had no takers. I'm
Right.
sorry.
We do a robocall. However, there was one parent that did come and approach Lori at the end of the time for the High Rock homework program. She was Spanish. She didn't, she wasn't very, she didn't speak English very well. But Lori is going to follow up with her because she wants her children to receive homework help. She
Yeah, and
approached.
probably ELS as well. But I just want to say, don't give up. Don't give up. Just because you don't get we all know how much participation is a non-thing, but just don't give up on a homework.
We have some, is that I will put together for you next month about, programming options.
And we made a commitment during the year to reach out and do a full scan again, including Needham Schools and Diane Simmons and
Yes.
community.
Yes.
You know,
It's-
engagement and then reassess what all the options are, right?
Yes.
And I'd be willing to go door to door with anyone that would join me. I do not want to do it again by myself, but if someone would join me, I'd be more than happy to go door to door, you know,
Okay.
just not alone.
Anything else? Or we'll get to our last agenda item here. New business G. We have, and you got this, as a separate, item,
But you didn't get the 2025.
Yeah, that-
standards. Could we,
this is, Cheryl, what is it that's going on here?
so can we table that?
Oh, you want to table it?
Yeah.
All right, great, okay,
So that I can
That's
make sure you have the
tabled.
information you need.
All right. Great. We're at the end of our agenda, but I wanted to check on the February 20th date for our next meeting because that is school vacation week. And that has sometimes been a challenge for certain board members to attend. Not a challenge for me. But
Once again, my kids don't want to travel with me as much anymore. I think we're staying.
We're
home,
good?
So, yeah.
All right, so we're on for February 20th, 5 PM is our next board meeting. And I think we're at the end of the agenda, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
And
So-
again, and under the wire there, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler both sides.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
bye-bye.
All.
Good night, all.
Good night.